Burnout has become incredibly normalized in American culture. I grew up hearing the adults in my life always talk about how tired they are, how stressed out they are, and how they're just drowning in responsibilities. But hey, that's life. I saw the adults in my life work long, brutal hours at work and come home so exhausted they physically cannot do anything but go to sleep. But hey, that's what you have to do when you gotta provide for your family. I saw my friends and classmates participate in sports, extracurriculars, have jobs, all while maintaining an impossibly high GPA because how else are you gonna get into college? I spent my entire life chasing an unattainable standard that has left me in a chronic state of burnout that I've been ignoring for years. This year, I've made it my mission to heal my chronic burnout, and the first step to healing is understanding. Over the past few months, I've made an effort to understand what burnout is, what causes it, and the warning signs that I've brushed off for years because I just thought it was a normal part of life. First thing I want to talk about is always being exhausted. I'm not just talking about sleepy, I'm talking about mentally and physically drained all the time. Some days I go to work and maybe do a load of laundry when I get home, and that's all I can handle. Even carrying on a conversation just feels impossible. And it doesn't matter if I go to bed at 8 p.m. the night before or if I caffeinate myself into oblivion, I just feel heavy all the time. And it's easy to use the excuse of, oh, I just need to manage my time better. Oh, I just need to work on my sleep schedule better. It's easy to blame it on something that you can change, and more on that later, but that's how it's so easily missed. Brain fog combined with physical heaviness is a great way to describe it, honestly. Like, it just feels like there is a wall between me and the rest of the world. Understanding that sensation made me realize that it was more than just a sleep or time management problem. This was something bigger, and it was a sign that I've just been running on empty for way too long. The next sign I ignored was even small tasks were overwhelming. Not just physically, like I didn't just feel too physically tired to do stuff. It got to the point where everything just felt like too much to handle. Small things like going to the grocery store or checking the mail, to things that I enjoy, like making YouTube videos and working out, just felt like it was taking so much mental energy. This has also come with decision fatigue. I mean, I've gone through so many changes this year. I've had 3 different jobs, I've moved states, and I'm planning a wedding. So it's at the point now where even small decisions just make me spiral. When you're burned out, your brain is already working so hard just to get you through the day that small tasks can feel overwhelming because your mental battery never gets a chance to recharge. For me, this showed up as just feeling like I had nothing left to give. Even small inconveniences throughout the day would just send me on a complete spiral, and I could not bounce back. I realized this was a problem when I noticed everybody around me was doing just fine with handling life. And I know that, you know, just seeing somebody from the outside, they may look put together while, you know, they have maybe something else going on. I'm sure lots of people see me in my day-to-day life and they think I'm handling everything just fine when there's a million fires going on inside my head. But I realized that this stuff should not take as much mental energy as it should. The people around me are handling things just fine. My fiance is handling things just fine. And that's what made me kind of understand that this is not normal. This stuff is not hard for other people. The third sign I ignored was I cannot concentrate. I mentioned brain fog earlier in the video, so I'm gonna expand on that a little bit now. I've always had a decent memory at the very least, so when I started forgetting things that I usually would not forget, you know, taking my birth control at the same time every night, or something at the grocery store that I specifically went out to get, or someone would tell me something that I needed to remember, and the second they stopped talking to me, I would instantly forget it. Those are signs that I knew that something was off here. And of course, naturally, as you grow up and become an adult, you have more responsibilities and more things to remember, but I just felt like my rate of forgetfulness was increasing exponentially faster than my number of responsibilities, if that makes sense. Like, there was no reason why I should have been as forgetful as I was, and sometimes still am. Even things that weren't memory related, you know, I was making mistakes I don't usually make. I would have to reread an email several times before I understood what was being asked of me. I would hear somebody speaking to me, but I wasn't listening to what they were saying. Just overall, like, brain fog. This was a key indicator that my brain had been at its limit for way too long. And the chronic stress that I was constantly putting myself through was wearing my brain down. Because I used to just think I was lazy. Like, you've really gotten lazier as you've gotten older. You need to lock in. And I'm realizing now that this is not something, this is not laziness. The most important sign for me to recognize, and the most difficult one to overcome so far, has been guilt. Guilt of resting, feeling guilty for not doing enough on the weekends, or feeling guilty for sleeping in. This has been the most difficult one for me because productivity and constantly being on the move has been so deeply embedded in my identity for literally my whole life, as long as I can remember, ever since I was a little kid. It didn't matter if I had a long week, or if I checked everything off my to-do list already, or if I didn't get enough sleep the night before, or, you know, I just genuinely needed to rest. Because anytime I would sit down with the intention of just not doing anything, watching TV, taking a nap, I would feel this nagging voice in my head. I would get this awful feeling of, you are being so lazy right now. What are you doing? You cannot rest. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I saw the adults in my life, and, you know, adults even on TV and stuff growing up, pushing through extreme exhaustion all the time. And I thought if I didn't do that, I was lazy. I was even told as a kid a few times that I needed to do more, that I wasn't doing enough, that I was being lazy because I wasn't constantly busy. Another driver of this for me personally was that I didn't have the best grades growing up in like K through 12 school. I did well in college, but I did not have good grades in elementary school through high school. Like, I was not a good student, and I was told that I was smart. My strengths were just elsewhere. So I felt like I had something to prove. Like, my grades aren't good, so I need to do well in other aspects of my life. I need to make sure I'm being the best athlete I can be. I need to make sure that I'm the best singer in the choir. I need to make sure that I'm working a job and saving money so that I'm good at money management. I always felt like I had something else to prove to make up for my lack of grades. I was made to believe that my worth was intertwined with my productivity. They were one. And productive adults don't rest. Now I'm trying to unlearn that mindset, understand that my worth is separate from my productivity. I deserve rest and recovery just as much as everybody else does, and rest should not make me feel anxious, especially when I need it. The guilt has been the most difficult of this list for me to overcome, but the biggest slap in the face realization for me was this next sign that I kept saying, things will get better after ... and after would never come, because when there was one finish line, there was always a new one afterwards. I've had moments in my life of extreme busyness. I'm talking 18-hour days, 3 to 5 days in a row. Just the grind never stops. Everybody has had moments in their life like that. I even have a video on my channel talking about ways to be productive in those extremely busy times. But even in that video, I make it clear that this is not a permanent fix. This is only for temporary bouts of busyness. You should not feel like you have to do these methods all the time. So even then, I was recognizing that that is not healthy. And in those cases, you're like, okay, just let me get to the end of this busy week and I'll be able to rest. If I can just get here, I can rest. And I was doing that all the time. My first memory of this is back in college where I was doing way too much. I was doing way too much for no reason. I was constantly taking a full course load. I worked a job, and when I was home for summer and breaks, I worked a second job. I was doing extracurriculars, playing sports. I was doing too much. Like, I did not need to be doing that much, but I remember constantly feeling like, okay, after this test, I'll feel better. After this project, I'll be able to rest. But then once I'd get past that test, there was a project, or there was a busy weekend, or I had to work. It was always something keeping me from resting. Then after college, when I was working 11, 12-hour days, 5 days a week, I would tell myself, okay, I just need to get to my day off. Or if I had a vacation, I just need to get to my vacation. But of course, what happens after a vacation or your day off? You go back to work. So it was always just trying to get through the week. And then when I realized I was gonna get a different job and I needed to leave this job, I was like, okay, let me just get to my new job and I'll start to feel better. And it really hit a turning point for me when I got to my new job. My new job was significantly less stressful, normal hours, weekends off, nobody bothered me on my time off. I had a normal job, and I still felt that feeling of, let me just get to the weekend, or let me just get to next weekend. I couldn't use my draining, exhausting job with long work hours as an excuse for feeling as drained and exhausted as I did. I wanted to just feel like myself again. But upon reflection, that's when I realized I've lived like this for years, and I don't even remember what a happy, healthy, rested version of myself looks or feels like. I had to learn that there's not gonna be a perfect time to rest. There's always gonna be a busy week ahead. There's always gonna be a deadline. There's always gonna be a responsibility. And if I didn't make intentional time to rest, it was never gonna happen. The last sign of burnout that I ignored for way too long was that I always thought I was the problem. Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't have the best grades in school. I thought school was hard. I was always falling behind on assignments and readings. I would just not turn things in sometimes. Like, I could not keep up. A few years ago, I actually discovered that I have dyslexia that went undiagnosed for my entire childhood. And I'm not saying that's the only reason why I had bad grades. It could have been a number of things. Since I was undiagnosed, I was always told by the adults in my life, my parents, teachers, coaches, counselors, that I was smart. I just needed to work harder. My work ethic was the problem. My discipline was the problem. My priorities were the problem. It was always something that I was doing wrong that I needed to fix. And to me, it just felt like everybody had this secret of getting good grades and productivity that I could not figure out. That belief has stayed with me through adulthood. All the time, I find myself seeing the people around me handling everything just fine, like I mentioned earlier, and I'm asking myself, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not able to handle this as well as the people around me? Do I think a childhood of feeling inferior because of something I couldn't control might have evolved into an adulthood of chronic burnout? Perhaps. Who's to say, really? All I'm saying is, because of this belief I've had about myself, my default response to struggling has not been to ask for help or to slow down even. It's been to push myself even harder. Learning about dyslexia certainly helped me understand how I got to this point, and now I know that I was not the problem. I wasn't failing because I was lazy or lacked discipline. Some things really were harder for me, and I spent years trying to fix myself when what I really just needed to do was understand what I was really up against. I don't need to keep pushing myself past my limits. That's not gonna help me heal. Instead, I'm trying to be nicer to myself, be more kind, more gentle, because I'm really not doing that bad. I have good work ethic, I'm not lazy, and I think I'm pretty disciplined, even though that's not what I thought when I was a kid. None of these behaviors developed overnight. Growing up, exhaustion was normal. I just thought it was a part of life, and it got worse as you grew up. And then mix that with years of feeling like I just needed to fix something about myself to be normal or at the standard that I'm supposed to be at. And I just lost sight of what a healthy, balanced life is supposed to look like. Once I started realizing that rest was never gonna come if I didn't force myself to, and the way I was living was just not sustainable, that's when I began to understand burnout and how severe it's been for me over the past several years. I just want you guys to know that you're not alone in this. Burnout is way more common than we think and even care to admit. Ever since I started sharing my story online, I've gotten so many comments with people's stories. I think it's just a more nuanced subject. So if you have any other thoughts, leave them in the comments. I want to know what you guys have to say about this topic. I also want you guys to know that a happy and restful life is possible. You just have to know that you deserve it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.